Hey everybody. Super Metroid is easily my favorite game of all time, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I have the screw attack symbol tattooed on my right arm. I've played this game dozens of times all the way through, and I know it like the back of my hand, so unlike my Let's Play for Pokemon Red, I'm not going to bother pretending that I'm playing this game for the first time. But that said, I do still want to play the game as if I'm following the way that the developers intended you. So I'm not going to just be doing a breakneck run from power up to power up and just kind of breezing through the game. I find that to be less interesting to watch. So I'll still do a lot of exploring, but just know going in that this is easily my favorite game of all time, and that's going to be reflected in the way that I play it. Alright, let's get started.
The last Metroid is in captivity.
If you couldn't tell,
The galaxy
this game is
is
being
at peace.
emulated with some nice German subtitles at the bottom. This is the first game in the Metroid series that introduced the game with an unrelated section that you would never revisit throughout the rest of the game. And Metroid Prime would go on to do the same thing, and to a lesser extent Metroid Fusion. As you can see, the developers put arrows pointing in the direction that you need to go just to make it clear. Even though this is a linear level, it's indicating that you're able to walk through the door and it's not just a wall. There's the Metroid larva. And there's Ridley. It's occurred to me that this is a bit of a Dark Souls kind of opening. You fight a boss as your first enemy. I suppose that your first enemy in Dark Souls is not a boss necessarily, but you do fight a boss very early in that game. And also like Dark Souls. Oh, Dark Souls, I think you do actually have to defeat the Asylum Demon, but Ridley here, as you'll likely see, because it's hard to beat him, is optional. You don't have to kill him. Because when he gets you down to low energy, he just flies away. If you do manage... God, those subtitles are gonna bug me. Luckily there's not too much text in this game, which is one of the reasons why I like it so much. Most of the storytelling is either wordless or environmental. If you do manage to get Ridley down to the lowest possible health, then he'll drop the Metroid larva and grab it with his hind legs and fly away, kind of telling me that he's injured a bit and he needs to recuperate, and he lost grip of the larva as a result of the battle that you had just had. So if that timer runs out, it is actually possible to fail this section, and then you just have to start over from the beginning of the level. And because you haven't hit a save point up until that point in the game, it does just send you back to the opening elevator. I feel like it would be annoying, but it would have sent a message to the player for failing if they just wiped your save and you had to start over from the very beginning. But that's kind of severe and kind of pointless. So unlike other Metroid games, well, I guess Metroid 2 actually starts you off on the surface of the planet SR388. So I'm going to set off to the right, and immediately the game hits you with a wall that you can't get through, and also a wall that you can't jump up. So just like the first Metroid, it toys with your expectations of side-scrolling games and forces you to go to the left instead of the right. It also doesn't tutorialize directly for you that you have to shoot doors in order to open them. If you're paying really close attention, you'll notice that this material is the same as the wall that blocks you to the right of the ship. This path is too narrow for me to get through, but I can't get in there, but I can get in here, so let's check it out. And yeah, we can't get through there. We'll have to come back. So just like that other blue door, that passage is blocked with a tunnel that's too small for Samus to fit through. You can fall on the right side of the pit here, and you won't hit any platforms except for just one on the bottom. As you might guess, from the opening cutscene, this is where Samus fought Mother Brain at the end of her first adventure in Metroid on the Nintendo Entertainment System. That chasm that I descended before is also a replication of the chasm that you have to ascend at the end of Metroid 1 after you defeat Mother Brain. So you might also recognize this from the very beginning of Metroid. And likewise, if I go to the left, we'll find the morph ball, or the morphing ball. And not only did this laser camera thing activate, but these two statues activated on the bottom too. seems to suggest that Samus's presence on Zebes has been spread to the rest of the planet. So I can't open that pink door just yet, or red door, but I can shoot down here. This room is also a holdover from Metroid 1. You see, I would have had to get the morph ball in order to get into this room. If I had gone right, then I wouldn't have been able to get into this room to get the missiles. And I don't know if this is supposed to be of any significance, but I believe the text and font color for the word missile when I just got the power up was the same color as the door that you can shoot to open it. I think a player's natural curiosity of the weapon that they just got would cause them to use it on this door that they otherwise have been unable to open. Actually, if you look closely at the tip of the missile, that color matches the color of the door. We'll see later on the super missile that it is green, just like the doors that it can open. I don't believe that the color coding also applies to the power bomb. I don't believe it's yellow, which is the color of the doors that the power bomb opens. But by then, you'll have recognized the pattern of the power-ups that you can pick up opening different colored doors, so it's the only logical choice for opening yellow doors when you encounter them. Okay, the room is brightly lit when before it was completely dim, so we should expect things to be different. And they are. So these are space pirates. These are Samus's main enemy throughout the Metroid series, which might be forgiven for being skeptical about. Oh, by the way, this flashing door indicates that we would have had to complete some objective in the room before we could have opened it, which I believe is always that you have to defeat all the enemies in the room. We'll find more of those flashing doors later. So despite the fact that the space pirates have been Samus's nominal enemy in the Metroid games up until this point, I believe this is actually the first time that they've been depicted in the game. Mother Brain is the leader of the space pirates, but she does not resemble these crab-like creatures. In fact, in Metroid 1, she is just literally a brain that has spikes coming out of it and will shoot stuff at you. Okay, so let's review. We have both the missiles and the morphing ball. And so between these two doors, I'll probably try the missile door first. Let's see what we can find. Looks like there's some hieroglyphs in the background there. I believe both of these enemies are holdovers from the original Metroid. Map data access completed. So now we have the map of Crateria. So we see where our ship landed. Off to the right is the wrecked ship, as well as access to Brinstar and Meridia. We were in Brinstar earlier on a different route, and then there's a third access route to Brinstar on the left side. I see at the end of the corridor on the left is a dot, looks like a save station just above it, and then a dot at the end of that long corridor down the pit. And on the way to the leftmost entrance to Brinstar is another dot. So I would guess that I'm supposed to be drawn towards any of these entrances and these dots. So the first thing that I would probably do is to try to get the closest ones to me. So I'm going to try to cross the hall here and grab the dot that's at the end of the corridor there. So unlike in the original Metroid, where using your missiles was a really good way to save health because the enemies were a lot harder to hit, in this game you can angle your shots up or down, and that does a lot in terms of enabling you to shoot enemies. Okay, we have no way of destroying these blocks, and if I shoot at it, I can hear it landing, but it's not destroying the block, so we still can't get through here. When you fight that swooping bug in Metroid 1, it's almost invariably a good idea to use your missiles against it, because the odds of you taking it out without sustaining a lot of damage by using your beam are pretty low. Whereas in this game, they just take 3 shots with the beam. You can fire a lot faster, your beam can go across the entire room. There's no long beam in this game. And so it's pretty doable to take it out. And on the whole, Metroid 1 is a heck of a lot more difficult than Super Metroid. And now that we have the morphing ball, we can go down here. This guy is indestructible. It's a big cloud of these guys. So I'm gonna get into my morphing ball and I can dodge him. Okay. Great, got a bomb. So now we can go into that tunnel room with the blockages. Yeah, it's one of those metal doors again. And here we have, I think it's the Chorizo, not to be confused with Chorizo. You can destroy those little bombs that he throws out at you to free up on health and missiles. He goes down pretty quickly, especially if you space out your missile shots. If you just try to pump him full of missiles as quickly as you can, he actually won't register that you're shooting him with all of the missiles, so it's good to kind of pace yourself. So great, now we have the bomb. So to put it in terms that Mark Brown uses in Game Maker's Toolkit, I have a new item that recontextualizes the space that I've seen before. And since I'm close to the exit, let me go back outside and take another look at that big wall that blocked me before. Looks like it's still raining outside. I love the detail of Samus kicking up water as she runs on the wet ground. Great, so now we can blow through this wall. But we are thwarted by a green door. So this is the first time that we've seen a green door in the game, and that's an indicator that at some point we're going to have to acquire another weapon of some kind that would enable us to open that door. When you're trying to control Samus, an important thing to notice is this somersault jump maintains the momentum of the jump regardless of whether you hold the move button down. And so you can do precision jumps by jumping straight up and then moving Samus in midair after the fact, like I am right now. It's a little hard to tell, especially with the parallax. And then somersault jumps are good for if you want to cover a greater distance, or if you are pretty certain that you know just how far you can space out the jump. If you keep the button held as you're doing the jump, then you'll maintain your momentum. These little crawling creatures are called gamers, I believe, and because we can angle our shots down and also kneel while we shoot, makes a big difference because we can now shoot enemies that are close to the ground, unlike in Metroid 1, in which case you'd have to lay a bomb in order to damage any enemies that are below you, which just generally made you feel like a inflexible robot as opposed to the agile wall jumping ninja that Samus increasingly becomes over the course of the games, to the point where actual Team Ninja developed and designed the combat and the style of Metroid Other M and took the ninja approach to the nth degree. So a little tip here is that you can bomb jump up to here and skip tedious bombing of that section. It's not necessary, but it just rewards players who happen to be holding the button to the right when they're doing that bomb jump. So there's a lot of secrets in Metroid games, and the Super Metroid game introduced the dichotomy of having marked secrets and unmarked secrets. And so there is an unmarked secret at the bottom. There's actually several in criteria that eventually you'll be able to access, one of which I could access right now, but I'm going to try to not just act like I'm some wizard. So I'm going to pretend that I don't know where it is. So those two dots are inaccessible to me because of the green door, so I will not be going in that direction, at least until I can open green door, so I am forced to go to the left. And having picked up the map is going to indicate to me that there's a place to go to the left of this room. If you didn't pick up the map, then you would probably struggle for a lot longer to find that passage there. I think I've noticed that a lot of people who play Super Metroid get an energy tank, so now I have 100 more energy units. A lot of players in Super Metroid tend to neglect the use of their angle buttons on L and R, and it causes them to be much less accurate. So this space pirate will defend against my beams, so I have to use missiles in order to defeat him. I believe you can also lay bombs on him, so if you were completely tapped out of your missiles, you would still have a way to defeat these guys. Each missile pickup, by the way, is 2 units. So this door that I just went through is unmarked on the map, which is interesting because it's right there in plain sight, but it still is unmarked, which, well, when you see what is in the door to the right, you'll maybe understand why. It's a very different looking room here. Here is some of my favorite storytelling within a game. This room is a callback to the similar room in Metroid 1 where you saw a statue of Kraid, who is the green-eyed monster on the left, and Ridley, who we met at the beginning of the game. They were the bosses of the game whom you would have to defeat before you could proceed to the final boss. But we can also see the monster with the yellow eye and the monster with the blue eye to the right, so now we have 4 bosses that we need to defeat. And all of this is just implied in the background. There's no support character who pops out of your helmet to tell you what's going on. There's no commanding officer who beeps at you and explains what you're looking at. You just have to figure it out for yourself. And those blocks down there. are indestructible. This is also the first time that you'll be exposed to water. You'll notice that I will not bomb jump if I'm submerged in the water, and I also move much, much more slowly. Yeah, my jump is almost completely pinned by the pull of the water. So this room being unmarked on the map to me tends to imply that officially it's not supposed to be there, and in fact whoever designed that map may have actually designed it before the extra passageway was installed there. So this is a curious creature here that produces these little flea monsters that will give you a lot of resources when you shoot them, but we're completely full, so we don't have to bother with it. It's generally a lot easier to run around with full health in Super Metroid. There's so many more health pickups, the enemies are so much easier to defeat, and so in contrast to its predecessors, you find yourself more of in an exploratory mode as opposed to survival mode, which is definitely the case with Metroid 2. Metroid 1 still feels like an adventure, but Metroid 2 feels almost like a horror game. Alright, so we got 2 pink doors here. I actually opened both. Since we have the missiles to do it right now. So, both of the monsters in the room that we fought so far, the bug-eyed guy and the hopping monster, are holdovers from the original Metroid. So this room, there's no indication when you first go here that you have to bomb it, but so this right here is kind of a hidden secret, and we haven't found the map room yet, so maybe, no, here we go. So you actually have to go through that secret in order to find the map room. I feel like there would be no way to figure this out without hacking the game, but I'd be curious if you could get the map to this area and if it would actually show the map room since it was hidden behind a secret wall. So speaking of secrets, there's a couple of dots to the right and a dot down and to the left. And interestingly, there's that corridor that just kind of seems to be standing on its own without being connected to the rest of the map. So it'll be interesting to figure out how to get there. And so there's that little section of Brinstar that we were in before that hooks back up to Criteria. There's that other entrance to Criteria. Looks like you pass through Meridia in order to get to the entrance to Norfair. And then there's a creepy looking symbol at the end of that area there. And given that we just saw a statue that has a bunch of monsters on it, I don't think it's too far of a guess for a new player to look at that and say, I should probably go there. There's probably a boss that I need to find. So the game does give you some objective markers. The dots kind of pull you towards them to try to lead you by the nose to figure out like where you need to go next. But there's nobody verbally telling you this. Another interesting thing is this dot is just kind of standing on its own over here. Kind of tempting you to get to it, but you have to figure out how to get to it. Same thing with this dot that's hovering next to the Meridia sign. As we get closer to them, I'll pull up the map and we'll see how the game hints to you how to get to it. Interestingly, and this was never repeated in any of the other Metroid games, because you wouldn't have both shoulder buttons to aim with, but if you hold both shoulder buttons, so that's L and R, it's one of those metal doors again, you'll actually aim up. So here's R, L, and both. You aim straight up. There's no real advantage to doing that other than it keeps your hands off the D-pad. But you can't actually move while holding both L and R to aim up. Alright, let's explore to the right here. Oh, So that little hole just dropped us down here. It kind of makes us wonder how we're supposed to get through to this area. I wouldn't want to be the person that drops into that little pit there. Just a little tip for you. If you want to get past one of these pipe guys, just lay a bomb. And you'll blow them up and hop over at the same time. Another one of these indestructible shell creatures that are another holdover from Metroid 1. Given all of these similarities to the creatures from Metroid 1, it's worth pointing out that it takes place on the same planet as Super Metroid, which, if it wasn't obvious before from the repeat presence of Mother Brain's chamber, now you know for sure. And something that's also noteworthy is that the game is never going to put an enemy in an area that you probably can't also reach. So this little crab guy down here is kind of hinting to you that you can get down here. So if you lay a bomb, you'll notice that this symbol pops up, and that symbol will be significant later. But it's also an indicator that we are not equipped to get down there. So these little guys keep the lights on. So it's this interesting challenge not to damage them, because otherwise the lights will dim, and eventually, if you shoot too many of them, the lights will go out. And then you'll be at the mercy of these spikes here. And this is our first missile recharge station, which is just as well since we've almost completely exhausted our supply. Be handy to come back to for really low on missiles and we're passing through. So, something I actually just wanted to demonstrate there. I did accidentally fall down, but Samus will recoil a pretty significant distance if you take damage. And that can often put you back on safe ground. She goes up and to the left and then falls back down, which can often elevate you up and back towards safety. In that case, it took 2 hits, but I didn't actually have to move her to get there. I find with games, especially platform games, that it's worth not feeling like you need to micromanage the movement of your character at every moment. Sometimes the game is actually trying to help you out by moving you in the direction that you need to go automatically. So I've bombed walls to get through before, and that's what you need to do to get through here. But if you get stuck, you can actually see that this passage continues on if you look on the map. So most players probably wouldn't be thwarted by this little section right here. And it's not on the map, but there is this kind of unusual looking floor. If you bomb it, it reveals a different symbol than the one that we saw in the initial chamber from before, so it'd be good to keep an eye out for. These guys are indestructible. So let's try to roll past them. So Samus's run, her standard run, requires a bit of momentum to get going, in contrast to the Morph Ball, which you can immediately accelerate and arguably moves faster than Samus's run. So good to keep that in mind in case we have to get through somewhere quickly. So as you can see, we're in a big room here, and it seems to continue down and to the right, so I would probably want to check out what's up above me first before I continue down. So I'll do that. And holding the jump button will enable you to maximize the height that you get out of the jump. It doesn't necessarily change your distance, but it'll change your hang time. And if you look in the map in the upper right corner, I see that I should have access to a save point to the left. And so if you bomb through that secret block, you'll be able to access it. Hopefully at this point, the game has conditioned you to check out crevices and to bomb things. If you're up against a little tunnel that only the morph ball can fit, there's a pretty good chance that you're able to bomb it. It's also worth pointing out that there's never going to be any secret exits to any of the save rooms, so there was a little dot on the other side of the save room, but there's no way to get through to it from the other side of the save room. Save rooms always have one entrance and one exit. These guys take a lot of hits, so it's worth using your missiles on them. Especially because they only take one shot to take out with your missiles. And this metal door implies that we have to fight these enemies before we get into here, so this room is a little bit better protected than other ones, which is interesting. And those little spores hurt you, so you gotta watch out for them. This monster is called Spore Spawn, and fighting a big enemy like this with the music changing and the environment, and just the overall atmosphere in this room would kind of make you question whether he's one of the bosses that you saw on the statue back on Criteria, and he's not, but that doesn't mean that this game doesn't have mini bosses to test your skills up until this point. And we've actually already faced the first mini boss in that Torizo at the beginning of the game after we get the bombs. It's fairly easy to dodge around, and when you come up out of your crouch, out of the morph ball, see now he's whipping around really quickly, so we're actually probably just safe staying in the morph ball. When you first come up out of the morph ball, you'll come into a crouch, and then from there you can actually aim up and angle your shot towards the spores. And maybe a little bit hard to tell, but when I jumped up into that spore, it actually launched me pretty quickly to this side, which is similar to what happens to Alucard when he gets hit in midair in Symphony of the Night. Usually it's more of a pain to deal with in Symphony than it is in this game. You'll actually see speedrunners taking advantage of the acceleration and the airtime you get when you get hit in midair. Okay, had to pause briefly there. After we defeated the boss, you'll notice that the environment got wilted and brown compared to the kind of lively green that Spore Spawn had given it. So if you look at the map, you'll actually notice that we're in uncharted territory. We went up past the dot and went to the room above it, and this room that we're in right now was actually not on the map. If you look closely, it's not possible to zoom into the map, but if you look closely, you'll notice that the room that we're in right now has a border on the bottom on the left side of it, but not on the right, which I think is the game trying to hint to you that you're supposed to go down somehow. And you're not Mario, so you can't go through these pipes here, but you can jump on it. It'll disappear, send you down this really long chasm into this room, where you can pick up your first super missile, which has a green tip and is what is required to get through green doors. Now because we have this power up, I think... Love that moment. I think players would be tempted to go all the way back up to Criteria and go straight to that green door that they saw to the right of the ship when they first landed. That's not entirely necessary, because chances are you'll find yourself back up there. But it's good to keep in mind. There's a block that you can only blow up with a super missile. It's good to keep in mind in case you're looking for where to go next. Alright, so came back around, did a little loop, and we see that there's a couple of dots above us, so let's go check them out, see if we can get there. And immediately, we'll see our first yellow door, which none of our weapons can open right now. Then we're enticed by a blue door on the opposite side of this wall. There's no way to get through to it, so we'll have to figure that one out later too. A lot of secrets in this room. And we're also seeing for the first time these square blocks with a cross symbol in the middle. We have no way of dealing with those blocks at all, so another enticement for when you come back and you have more equipment with you. We also can't see from here where it brings us, but if we go down, we have to deal with these enemies here. Let's see, okay. Oh, and we drop down. Alright, now that we blew those guys up, let's see if we can kind of inch our way closer and see what we can see. So these blocks here, they're one-way blocks. You can only fall through them. You can't shoot them or blow them up with a bomb. You can only go down through them. And I'm trying to jump up, and I see the bottom of a pedestal there, but I just can't reach it with my current equipment. And of course, if you're a speedrunner or you are an experienced Metroid player, you can easily wall jump up there, but I haven't learned how to do that yet. The game hasn't taught me how to do that yet. But wall jumping in this game, so here's a missile that's just right in plain sight. Wall jumping in this game is a technique that's not absolutely required in order to beat the game, but it is the foundation of sequence breaking in this game, where you get items out of the intended order and you can skip sections of the game and beat the game in much less time than you normally would have to take. So it's not on the map, but I do see that there's this passage down and to the left from us here. So that's going to make me wonder whether it's possible to get down here. So these two blocks stand out. And we can also see that there was a room down here as well. And so we just picked up the charge beam. So before, when we were fighting Spore Spawn, it's actually not possible to damage him just with a standard beam shot. We would have had to use our missiles, and if we ran out of our missiles, then we would have pretty much been screwed, because we wouldn't have had a charge beam, so we would have had to shoot at the little dots that fell from the screen, at the top of the screen, in order to get more of our missiles back. Here's green door. So that green door would have forced us to also explore the rest of this area first in order to get the super missiles. So we're in a long stair-like room here. It looks like there's a room off to the side. So before I go down, let me see if I can reach that. There's a ledge here that's too high, I can't reach it, and these little monster guys are not going to be of any help, so I'll have to come back for that another time. These guys are pretty tough to avoid. Not to make excuses, but there's also a slight input lag on my controller. Let's see, okay. Can make quick work of these guys with a missile. Spiny guys. So there's some spikes up above, so it's interesting. There's this wall here. I can't get through. So I guess you have to go above. This is like that other room at the beginning of Birdstar, at the first room that spokes off to the right in that initial chamber here. So these are those one-way blocks that I fell through. So I have to figure out a way to move fast enough to get across this bridge here. But before I do that, let's say I just assumed that I was incapable of passing through this room and I need to go look elsewhere. Go back through here, fight these guys off, and then realize that I'm stuck. I can't go back through this gate here. This is one of those subtle hints that the game is trying to give you, that you need to press on and you need to figure out how to get through this room, even though it seems like we're not able to. So we'll go back up here. Think about all the different buttons you can press on the controller. Take this guy out. So I have the X button shoots, A jumps, then B doesn't seem to do anything. Neither does Y. But if you hold B, you'll actually notice that Salmon will, excuse me, Samus, not Salmon, Samus will dash. And I believe that this is actually Nintendo playing on platformer tendencies to have a dash button, just like in Super Mario World, except in that game you hold the Y button. In this game, the Y button will cancel your selection of your special weapon. So in order to get past here, I have to hold the dash button down and run across this bridge. And only then will I be fast enough to get over it. Alright, it's another big tall shaft that seems to get me access back up to Praetorium, which I don't believe I would want to go to necessarily, because I still have this menacing looking skull thing in the bottom right that I would probably want to head towards, but I have a couple of these dots here. The only thing is that I'm not actually seeing a way to get from this area down there, so either there's another way or who knows. I'd have to investigate once I get there, but just to be thorough, I'll go up and check to see what the return to criteria looks like. And immediately I can jump high enough to get up there. Players of the first Metroid will remember that you get the high jump boots at some point, so you might be able to get those here too. Just notice that there's this pulsating core in the background. It's a very interesting room. I don't really actually know what purpose it's supposed to serve. Maybe energy of some kind. is that some of that environmental storytelling that Metroid is so good at. You see, there's an orange door, a yellow door, so let me try to get in there. Yeah, you need a power bomb. Oh shit. So this guy is kind of a Metroid. Sucks your blood, apparently. Nothing here. But I do need to get down there, and I can't go to the left. I can't return the way I came because of the gate, so I have to keep pressing on. There has to be a way to get down to this map area. So what you would probably end up doing is you just lay a bunch of bombs. And you figure out that you can actually bomb through this floor here. You can descend even further. And once again, I'm trapped. These monsters are not platforms. They just hurt you. So you're stuck again. In case you've been slapped around a lot by the level on the way down here, you have a way to restore your energy. Which, as you'll notice, is marked on the map with a bright dot that's different than the other dots. Speaking of which, I'm getting close to one of those freeform floating dots that is just kind of hanging out above the stage there. Let's see. So here's some water again that, as you can see, it restricts your jump, so I'm going to have to jump the distance from here to make it. But you'll see that actually my, there we go. I had to jump from the other ledge even though my jump was restricted by the water. So that actually pulls you into the spikes. Hurts you quite a bit. But he doesn't actually hurt you, the spikes do. And here is a hint that you can get up here. You'll notice that the blue dot room is just to the right of where we are, presumably next to this platform that's above us that we can't reach right now. But it's gonna prompt you to look around the room to find out if there's a way to get up there. And if I look off to the left, I'll actually see that there's a block that I can shoot to get up here, but I still can't jump high enough. So I'll have to come back here once I can jump higher. And again, you can always wall jump if you're really slick, but I'm gonna pretend that I don't know how to do that. And so right now we're actually in Meridia, technically. This is a little preview. If the name Meridian, its similarity to Maritime didn't send the message home to you, then this little glass encased tube surrounded by water is going to tell you that Meridia is a water level. And we know right now that we are totally bogged down by water, so getting through there is going to be kind of tough. And we're back here at the entrance to Norfair. There's this whole section off to the right. So again, the map is telling you that you can go somewhere that you can't see the current entrance to. I see these separate blocks off to the right, so I'm going to try to blow them up. And you need a super missile to get past them. So I'm going to go in. and there is a terrifying monster guarding this area. I definitely have to come back here. But here's a third area that has a ledge that's out of my reach, so the game has now told me 3 different times that I'm going to get something that's going to enable me to jump higher. And I need to get it before I come back here. So because I've exhausted the other rooms so far, I have no choice but to go down to Norfair. So this is rocky and barren in contrast to the green and life of the previous section. It's another one of those gate traps, but I know how to dash now, so let me see if I can get past it by dashing. Damn. Alright, I can get past the first one, but I can't get past the second one. I'm still not fast enough. And if you look down to the left, you'll actually see another set of those symbols that we saw before at the bottom of the initial chasm in Brinstar. So clearly that item is going to be important for us to get. And I'm seemingly trapped between the two of these gates here, but these enemies crawling in the spot in the top would suggest that you can go through either the top or, in this case, the bottom. And that lets us get back to where we need to go. So that's just some of that messaging that the game is trying to give you about what you can do. So we enter this room and we know that we are taking a lot of damage simply by being in there. And just the brief time that we were in there, we lost a ton of energy. And if you notice, you'll actually see that the room is rippling, almost as if it's so hot that the air around you is boiling. There's another one of those yellow doors. So this area is already pretty foreboding because one door was blocked off with a green that required a super missile, and then there's another yellow one which we can't even open, and a red one here. So this area seems to be implying that it's advanced. So I got a nice free energy tank right there in the open, but I did notice one of those little flame creatures going off to the side, and if you try to follow him, you'll actually fall through the floor, pass a missile on the way down here, and see that we can't jump high enough to get to it. So what to do? You have to go through this door. There's a ball on the other side, presumably with a power up, and I want to get through. To get the high jump boots. If you check Samus's sprite, her feet have changed slightly. There's a slight adjustment to the front instep of her feet to kind of show that she's now wearing the high jump boots. And so now I can jump higher and run faster. Well, can't run faster, but I can jump higher. I got my Air Jordans on now. So that chasm is still too high for us to jump up to, but let's check out this one. Whoa! Okay. Accidentally hopped off the side there. So great, now we can also reach this missile. metal door implies that we would have had to blow up that fire creature in order to get out of here. So we have the high jump boots, so we could retrace our steps and go check out those areas that required the high jump boots in order to access them. Let's see what else is past here. Whoa. Crap, I just wasted a couple of my super missiles. Ah, there's that arrow symbol again. We'll have to come back here once we can do something about that symbol. It's very faint, but you can actually see a little fire creature waddling around down there, which is the lure to try to get to where he is. You can access this door by following him. But not only do we go into another boiling hot room that is damaging us, but there's a one-way super missile gate that's blocking us through, so clearly we're not supposed to be coming through this side. I'm not sure how much clearer the game can make it that we are not welcome here. So nothing new, and we've gone through all the rooms that we can, and so far this is pretty much all that we can explore of Norfair. We did snag 3 power-ups in the process though, so it's not entirely for naught. Let's head back up and check out those areas that we could high jump to. Now there was that high jump that would have taken us back up to Criteria, but we've fallen down a chasm that is too high even for the high jump to access. Now we can either go to the right and go towards this skull, or we can go back, just a little bit of backtracking to get to that other room that was teased us before. So let's go check that place out, see what we can find. I have a feeling, and well, let me just say, a player would have a feeling that they're going to be going up against a boss if they're heading toward a big room with a skull on it, so they would probably want to max out the power-ups that they can get. Crap. So now I can jump high enough to reach this area. Just a quick distinction I want to make is these little crumbly blocks here are designed to show that you can shoot them with a beam, and that you don't have to blow them up with a bomb. And that'll become important when I show you what happens if you do blow it up with a bomb. Now we get the Spazer, which is a beam that was introduced in Metroid 2. And it significantly widens our shot. Be useful. It'll be a lot easier to hit enemies with the beam now. So if I were, say, on the other side of that block and I try to blow it up from here, you fall through right into the jaws of this guy here. So formally that kind of blow up pin monster would have taken 3 shots with the standard beam, but the Spazer takes only 2 shots, so our shots are not only wider, but they're also more powerful. So now that we have the high jump, we can go back to this room and go through the jaws of this very foreboding looking creature, which is a holdover also from the original Metroid. So game is again trying to tempt you to get to where the little enemies are by teasing him down there. So let's say no, you can bomb through here. This metal door is closed, and we seem to have blown up all the enemies in the room, so begs the question of why do you think you'll be able to access it? Excuse me. So I'm actually seeing a map that's to the right here, so maybe it's possible to blow a hole through this area. There's nothing over here. It's one of those crumbly blocks again that you can shoot with a beam. There's an awful lot of wall off to the right here. Kind of makes the composition of the room feel a little bit imbalanced, which is a bit of a stretch, but normally Samus is actually centered on screen. And I think that's the developer's subtle way of trying to imply to you that there's more space for you to move through. These guys are also a lot easier because they used to take about 6 shots, and now we can take them out in 3. So I can see that there's a save area off to the right, so I definitely want to get there. There's these stress fractures in the wall here. And a nice neat little spot for the more fall to fit. It's a windy, turning, kind of a maze-like area. Seems to be trying to protect something from us. So the reason why I laid a bomb there is because I was like right in this little pipe-looking thing. You can actually see that I revealed a one-way drop-through spot. So there's gotta be a way to come up and come back down through there. I believe those enemies are able to be defeated with one missile strike, but it's a lot harder to land a missile accurately than it is to get a spacer. So again, we see that not only is there a dot room off to the left there, which we can't access, but there's a corridor and then another dot room with the skull in front of it. So how do we get down there? Well, the one little notch that's missing from the map and this crack in the ground will prompt you to bomb it, and you can come through and get to the area from here. Alright, these guys again. Now that I have the spacer, I can take him out in a few shots. So somebody is shooting spikes at us. You notice there's actually almost like a angry mouth looking here. It's like a couple of purplish eyes and fangs that are hanging from the ceiling. It's very menacing. The background is covered in thorns. And we took that guy out really easily. But he did look like the monster that was on the pedestal at the beginning of the area up in Criteria, so it's interesting that that's who we see. So this guy, I don't know who he is, but he does not look good. So this eye door can be defeated with 3 missiles or 1 super missile, but seeing as we only have 5 right now, it's not in our best interest to waste it on the door. So it's not necessary, but you can either farm these little guys here, for some ammunition or some energy, or you can actually shoot up here and go through this super missile door. Find a missile recharge and an energy recharge. You could just as easily farm with the little guys, but this is more expedient. Fortunately, you can't you can't get super missile recharges from up there. The only place that you can restore all of your super missiles is if you go back to your ship. And right now, we're in the big room. Uh-oh. Holy shit. This guy is really big. That's the guy from the statue. Looks like he's just kind of waving at us. Oh, comes in for a strike. And some rocks. Let's see what other attacks this guy does. Okay, I was able to dodge that attack. Oh. We can get him to open his mouth if we shoot him in the eyes. Can't damage him by shooting him in the eyes, but he can open his mouth. So this guy is named Kraid, and he's a beefed up version of the boss that you fight in the first Metroid. So he flings out these little spike circles, and can shoot out these stabby spike things from his stomach, which you can actually jump on to get up to these platforms here. But fortunately, we have the high jump boost that enable us to just get up there on ourselves. So we want to tempt him to open up his eyes by shooting him. And if you're persistent and you hold your ground, you can actually take him out pretty quickly. That whole time I was actually not even moving Samus, I was just staying up on the platform and dodging as best as I can. And now we have the Varia suit. Which doesn't explain to you what it does, but it's a nice bright orange, and it's a little tougher looking. And if you're very astute, you would guess correctly that the Varia suit is intended to protect you against the extreme temperatures that we saw in those rooms in Norfair. Let's keep in mind, we still can't get out of the big chasm that we dropped down and passed by all of those indestructible creatures before, so we have to go further into Zebes, or Zebes, or however the hell you're supposed to pronounce this planet's name. Unfortunately, these guys will go down to one missile shot, so it's not necessary to spam your spazer at it. Now this metal door is open, so maybe we actually have to kill Kraid in order to get to it. But unfortunately you're greeted by these guys, who are a huge pain in the ass to kill, and just like a Metroid, you can only free yourself from them by bombing them. So if you look at the map, we'll actually see that there's a spot in this area, a little dot, and that historically has implied that there is a power-up somewhere. And there's been a lot of stuff hidden in this little section here. And if you look closely at the level and design, you'll see that there's all these little stress fractures that are in the ceiling and on the floor, so it's worth just kind of shooting at them. And if you're persistent, you can find this energy tank. So now that we have the various suit, we can go back down to Norfair. And with the initial exploration that we did in Norfair, we found a save point down at the bottom of the chasm, and the only room that we can actually pass through, now that we have the various suit, is this door here. But we'll come back to that after we save. So that's going to do it for me on my first playthrough for Super Metroid. But I'll be back soon. Thanks.